Good evening. We're on episode 4 of Cut Deep. Thank you for tuning in. I have a special guest in studio with me tonight, and we're going to do a diagnostic on the territory. As it stands, we're in very troubling times in the territory, and leadership is found wanting. There appears to be a lot of disappointment, resentment, and anger in the air. So thick it can be cut with a knife. The conversation between my guest and I will be very candid. In this 1-hour conversation, we will touch on the buying of our people's voice, tourism protocols, civil servants, public servants, stimulus packages, schools, teachers, spending on projects during COVID, the ever-present victimization, social security monies, electing of youth parliament, and any other issue we may stare into. We also recognize that tonight is elections not only in the U.S. Virgin Islands, but the presidential elections in the U.S. We brace for the outcome of both. The concept of Cut Deep was developed with a focus on encouraging the wider public to think more in depth and on issues that plague us, encouraging persons to have a voice and to use that voice to invoke change. Cut Deep is an interactive platform, cutting through the noise and political rhetoric. It is raw, uncut, challenging you to think critically. What do the issues mean for us? What part do we play? It is a platform that will move the Virgin Islands toward unified, integrated success. I am Cindy Roseanne Jones, your host. We will take a quick break and come right back with our guest for tonight.
The win! Oh!
What are the hell?
I'm freaking out!
Is time.
284 Music.
Coming to you live and direct from the beautiful British Virgin Islands.
What's poppin', what's really good, what's happening, what's up?
Davis has won it for the Lakers!
Welcome back. We are on episode 4 of Cut Deep. As mentioned, we have an exciting, dynamic guest in studios tonight. She is passionate and outspoken about the issues in the territory. And tonight, her and I, we will do a quick diagnostic on the territory. I want to welcome Kishma Penn to Cut Deep. Kishma, please introduce yourself to our listening audience.
Hi, good evening. My name is Kishma Penn. For those who don't already know me, I'm from the eastern end of the island. And yeah, very vocal and lots of political views. So I'm excited to talk to Sydney about those tonight.
Thank you, Kishma. I want to start tonight with your view. We're going to jump straight into it. We have 1 hour and we're going to pack as much punch as we can into this tonight. So I want to start with your view on the border opening protocols that were put forward last week by the administration.
Man, Cindy, you like to hit too hard.
Heavy hitters. Let's do
Jeez,
it.
man, straight. You ain't lead up. You ain't get no build up, nothing.
No. We want to get a lot in here tonight.
Well, as you know, I did a live last week, Friday, about the re-entry protocols, and I challenged the government very publicly to revise the plan because I do not think it's in the best interest of the people, both private and public sector. I don't think it's in the best interest of tourism. Like I keep saying, tourism, we are small, but we play in a big pond. And tourism is one of our economic pillars. That's our basketball player right there. We can't afford a season on the bench. We ain't going to be able to come back in and get a star role without playing, paying hard, spending some money and rebuilding. We could erase like a whole lifetime of what we've done in tourism if we stay out another season, especially coming off of the heels of Irma and not being fully recovered. It don't make no sense. It really doesn't. We lost most of the ending of the 2019 season, the beginning of this year, when the first lockdown happened, and we can't afford to not play in 2020.
Correct. 2021. We lost half of the last season.
Correct.
Because we've been in lockdown or in this space since about mid-March. And I think at the beginning of March, the cruise ships and so forth stopped coming. So we lost half the season from that point. The summer is usually slow.
Correct.
And right now, I guess we have to figure out how we will get back into this season and not let it go to waste. What do you think was some of the more problematic areas that were presented in terms of the protocols? Most damaging? Or...
Ooh, the air traffic is one for sure. For sure. Because air traffic is one of the most unstable things when traveling. And like I said, for me, I don't understand this concept of the 90 minutes in between flights needing to be distancing, because what happens if you miss your block? What you going to do? You're going to circle up in the air for 3 hours until you have your next available block? And it's really impossible to make a carrier who have a schedule to keep, who's already off schedule, to delay his schedule even more just to accommodate you and your ridiculous protocol that don't make no sense.
One of the troubling things for us with tourism is that tourism probably feeds about 85% of families
It does.
In the territory. Right now, people are under a lot of strain because they just don't know. Based on the protocols, there's a very high chance that the tourism season wouldn't revive for at least the beginning of 2020-2021 season, which puts a lot of families in dire straits. A lot of small businesses, because a lot of small businesses are in tourism, the bareboat charters, all of that. It just throws it all off, and there are a lot of families that feed on that particular pillar. Right now, you could say that I want to talk about the civil servants and public servants. So I want to go into that from this, because I find there's a lack of empathy. Based on what's going on. And I find it most from the civil servants and the public officers, because they have not lost a salary. Now, what I want people to understand is that government is in a bottomless money pit. So when you have a whole pillar like tourism down, you're in for trouble. Right? You're dishing out money. No money is coming in.
Correct.
But money is going out.
Correct.
At some point, if tourism isn't jump start, you don't get a jump start for tourism. You're talking about families having to decide how they're going to eat, how they're going to pay their rent. So I find civil servants who have not lost a salary, I find them with a lack
They're
of
being
empathy.
They're being very callous. They're not very empathetic. It's simple economics. You don't have to be a financial guru. Money coming in, no, but money is going out. And money is going
at a fast rate.
Money is going out continuously. And you talk about tourism, but the problem is both of our economic pillars are built on whatever is happening in the outside world. So the same way COVID has slowed our economy, it has slowed the economy everywhere in the world. So you have less money in financial investment, which obviously means you have less money in the financial sector, financial services. So there you lost money already. Then you lose tourism completely. You haven't built there's no short farm makeup industry that full in the gap in between those two. And it's, for me, I don't understand how come the civil servants can't see the writing on the wall, because it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Whether they want to.
It is a matter of time. It's definitely a matter of time. And you saying that they don't see the writing on the wall, I think that we've so long depended on government. And the truth is, government's kitty has never really failed us, ever. But we're not in the time when everything was flourishing. Even if we didn't have COVID, we've been talking for some time now about diversifying our economy some more, because even the tourism product, diversifying that some more, because it has always been, financial services has always been a cash cow. Even that, we have not seemed to find a way to diversify. So we've been very comfortable with this cash cow that has been bringing in money. And we haven't thought about how to make more money. So our monies are dwindling. And I want the civil servants to know that there's no way the government can operate the way it's operating. And tourism stays down, and there won't be a knock. on our paychecks at some point.
Well, that's necessary because there's two things. Number one, for maybe the last 10, 15 years, the civil servant salaries have made up the majority of the budget to begin with. And it's steadily increasing. I think the number is around 49.5%. That's the first thing. Second thing is their first obligation is to their retirees. So us who are actually active, we're not even their first priority. And to be constantly... And we know that their pocket isn't infinite because, yes, the government has been a cash cow and hasn't really failed us, but some of us memory short. Like I said, right after all, the money disappeared. And there was a lot of unclearness as to why the money disappeared. I mean, eventually, yes, they got us back on stream, but we went a nice little stretch without a paycheck and without an explanation as to why there was no
Civil service?
Civil service, yeah.
Okay.
They went about 6 weeks. I think it's about 4 to 6 weeks without a paycheck with some real, muddy, funny explanations. So we've experienced what happened. We know the bottom could fall out. I think the problem is people seem to forget that the bottom did fall out and the bottom can fall out again. So I think that's a problem. What I would like, it's funny that you keep talking about diversification. For me, it's funny for me that the powers that be in the development of this country have never thought about the marriage that can exist between our two pillars. Because you can build your country's infrastructure to support the financial services, which will increase tourism. Because if you increase, like for instance, better data, more high-speed data, better hotels, more access to the BVI, then you have some of the same people who are doing business with your financial services sector coming to the BVI and your tourism end. So we never created that marriage. That's funny to me why that marriage wasn't created.
Yeah.
And there's obviously there's a hole for it. There's a need for it.
Well, tourism is a really wide ranging economic pillar. And
Correct.
you're right. Enough hasn't been done to, I feel, enough hasn't been done to, what's the word? Look into how, it all can work. Because tourism is a thing, right? You got sports tourism, event tourism, financial tourism, overnight guests, religious tourism. There are a lot of things. And under the last director, we did look at quite a few of those things. I know there's been a lot of conversations between financial services and tourism, but yes, the infrastructure will be the foundation to determine where that goes, right? Because if you don't have the hotels, the network, and
Yeah, I don't like...
it needs to go hand in hand.
I don't particularly like the fact that we have sold pretty much the same tourism product. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I have this love-hate relationship with this new marketing campaign. I prefer the Nature's Little Secret. If we are on the opposite sides of the spectrum with that, that's okay. We could agree to disagree. But I prefer the Nature's Little Secret because we could never run out of secrets. This place is too big and too small and too big and too small within its own.
Do you understand why that happened though? And I think that was from an outside position looking in, and from people contacting me. I think that the problem was that people didn't understand why there was a move from Nature's Little Secrets. And that is something that has been on the table for a while. Like, this isn't the first time. I think this administration just said, yes, we're going to move away from it. Because a few weeks ago, there was another blow up, and the blow up is basically with the international media and the picture that they try to paint under the slogan Nature's Little Secrets in terms of hiding money and the criminal element of the BVI.
The Panama
and so,
Papers.
yes, and
Okay.
so it came on the table again for discussion, and that's where the idea came from, to let's just move. Not that we're not Nature's Little Secret and that our product doesn't represent that, the beauty, and it's just that the
That
way the
negative play.
international media continues to use it negatively,
Right.
and the impact that has on our financial services and the territory.
No, I understand.
Is the reason why we had to move away from that. And I think it should have been made a little clearer
But you see
to
that
the public.
that
and
inside
that
story
didn't
makes
happen.
a big difference.
And that's not even an inside story.
Well, true.
That is kind of what happened. But I always say, Kishma, that anything to do with the BVI, I'm always paying attention.
Right.
So even if they didn't tell us that inside the tourist board, but they did, I would have known. Because before they said it, I explained it to a couple of my colleagues. So I pay attention to everything that's happening or circulating around the BVI.
Well, that's
but
good.
that was the reason that that happened. Not that we're not in love with nature, it's a little secret, and it's not that it's a slogan that we don't love. We love it. BVI love. I guess more information is going to come out in terms of that, but that is a campaign to add love and lust to the BVI product.
But we'll see.
So we'll see where,
it
that goes. But just to shed a little bit of light on that, and I think that maybe your listening public understands a little bit more where that came from and the constant battle that we've had with that. And like I said, this isn't the first time it's been on the table. It's been on the table before under other administrations. Okay, so on that, we're going to take a quick break and we're going to come right back.
Right now, many people are trapped in their homes with an abuser. This is the shadow pandemic. In one weekend, calls to domestic abuse helplines in the UK went up by 65%. In the US, Asia, and pretty much everywhere, reported numbers are rising. These aren't just numbers, they're people you might know. If you think someone is in trouble, check in on them. Ask them if they're okay and if everything at home is okay. Educate yourself about domestic violence. Know the details of local services like helpline numbers or shelters. If she tells you or you suspect that her life or the lives of her children are in immediate danger, call the protection units or the police. The shadow pandemic is spreading right now. Let's help each other safely right now.
Welcome back. We're going to stay on our civil servants a little bit more and our public officers. Our civil servants and public officers play a very important role in the tense climate in the BVI right now. There's the perception that they lack empathy and understanding for those suffering at this time, given that they have not lost their salaries. What is your take on this?
I agree with the general public that they're not very empathetic. There's a real lack of understanding of what's happening, especially to their brothers and sisters in tourism. And the comments that are being made by civil servants, my friends, my colleagues, family even, it's really startling. Like sometimes when you hear them, I listened to a lady argue with me, said she was more concerned about being able to take a day trip to St. Thomas than tourists coming here to spend $1. That was her concern.
Wow.
She thought that was more important. So for me, I think the civil servants really, they're not standing in solidarity with their brothers and sisters. They're not standing with the people in the tourism economy. They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And they're being, to me, being such a large employed, because they're the largest body of employed people on the island. And they speak for a good chunk of the voting population. Being that quiet while you're seeing injustice happening, you're just as bad as a door.
And I find, and we're going to go on and we're going to talk about that some more, but I find that that is a very real culture. I'm going to call it culture because when something stays and festers so long, it becomes a part of you.
It does.
And so I find that that is a real part of us that unless something is at our doorstep, we just don't care.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point that became us.
Yeah.
I just don't know because we've always been our neighbor's keeper and everybody shared everything and problems and tears and food and building houses and everything. And just at this point, everybody's just...
You had it on the list earlier,
Everybody for themselves.
The victimization that was
Yes,
practiced.
and it's going to come up. And
that's why it's happening now. People are afraid of the victimization. People
Are they?
People are afraid. People are afraid. Since I'm dynamic because I speak up against things very openly, very publicly in the hot topic issues.
What do you think they're afraid of?
The lash, the
so,
clapback.
We have a population of about 30 33,000 people. Of course, some of them, they don't vote. They're not citizens. So yes, if you're not a citizen, you probably think twice about, wanting to jump on a bandwagon of, roughness, I'd say, against the government or the administration. But we have 13 people in our House of Assembly.
Correct.
Now, I know for sure that the victimization doesn't start or stop with them. There are people inside the civil service that are just very vindictive. I find the whole BVI, I call it a playground with bullies running around. I find it really surreal, the behavior, how easy it is to say, oh, I didn't like her from high school, or I don't like her brother, and you're like, how old are you now? We were in school 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
Get off it.
And they hold those things and they decide they're going to hold it against you. We decide who's going to make money, who's not going to make money based on all sorts of things. And that breeds that culture of victimization. So it goes deeper than then it goes deeper to those who have a voice and who, I don't think she should be using her voice, and they find every reason to then start blocking you. They make your life difficult at work. They make your life difficult, your small business, just everything. So I look at the BVI as this little playground where you got these bullies running around and just
cowboy town.
Keeping everybody's life so miserable.
It's a cowboy town. It's literally a cowboy town.
And I said to myself, and we had this conversation just before you came in about us being a docile people at this moment. We're so docile. I personally can't get my head wrapped around it, because the pressure that I see people go under here, I could never take that to bed. I have to open my mouth. I could not take that to bed. So I don't know why it's so difficult for us to, as one voice, stand up against a few people.
I don't think people understand a lot of how the processes work. That's the first thing. I mean, for a lot of years, and this is no dig on the VIP administration, but this was just the culture. In the 90s, the 80s and 90s, when you and I were little children and teenagers, you would have people saying, you know what you got, you don't know where you're getting.
Correct.
So there was never, and that's what we heard from our older heads. So there was never an openness to change, an openness to anything different.
True.
The victimization at that point in time had already been being practiced. It was...
we just didn't see it.
We didn't see it. It was already there.
Yeah.
My father died in 1992, and I know about victimization that happened to him in the late 80s and early 90s. And so it's been there. And it's just been like this ugly monster.
Festering.
All the time. It's kind of like
Now
those
it's out of
societies that have a problem with pedophiles and nobody talks about it. Victimization is all ugly. That's all ugly uncle in the closet that nobody wants to pay attention to, the pink elephant in the middle of the room.
It's not funny, but absolutely.
But that's what it is.
Comparison is correct.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
We have a bigger problem with victimization than we do with pedophiles. I mean, we have pedophiles too, but we have a bigger problem with victimization than we have with pedophiles. And it's sad.
We have a really serious problem with victimization, and I feel like civil servants and public officers, they wield a power that they in themselves do not comprehend, and therefore are unable to manage. We are docile and lost as a people with rights. I saw under the NDP administration where they told civil servants and this territory, it was okay to take to the streets and march in 2018. Do you remember that?
Yes.
It was one of the reasons. One, I didn't see the reason to get out there to march against. That was the public registers. That's a whole different conversation. But for me, I see that as a glass half full. You can look at it half full or half empty as it relates to citizens and the development that can come to this territory from that. It's something that our leaders are not talking about. I've been talking about it for the better part of a year. There are real benefits for this territory from that. And so when your leadership is kind of hell-bent on this is not what we want, then they don't show you the positive side of what can come. So in terms of that, I see the glass half full, half empty. So I didn't see that as something to march for, but it really turned me off that the government was the one driving, the administration was the ones driving that people should get out and march. That's not democracy.
No.
What I wanted to march was against the crap that you were doing. But if we did get out there and march, you would do whatever you had to do to everybody.
Exactly.
Right? It would be one big hang bang. So that was scary for me to see that we are in such a weak place as a people that the government can tell us when to march and when not to march.
The government...
Tell school children. I said, don't talk to my kids. They go to school to learn, you know, telling the children, oh, get out there, we got to get the... It was really something crazy to see, and it left me at a loss for words. Citizens of this territory, whether civil servants, public officers or not, must understand their responsibility to this territory and not to an elected administration. It's the right of every citizen to question the actions and decisions of elected administrations without any type of fear, which leads me again, we're here again on the whole victimization conversation. How do you think that we could get over that as a people?
People have to talk up. People have to make... You see, yes, the funny thing is, when you don't have knowledge, it becomes difficult to believe what is being said. A lot of people, as much as we know that there's victimization, there's a lot of people that don't believe that there's victimization. And there are a lot of people who are victims of victimization.
And they don't realize.
They don't realize that they're victims of victimization because there's a lot of ignorance around it. Like, if your life was made intentionally harder, when we were kids, you go in school, it didn't matter where your parents were working or whatever, you went to the primary school in the village you were from. When you are on one end of the island and for no other reason other than they just felt like sticking you on the other end of the island and you have to bus all the way across the territory from one end to the next to a public school, that's a form of victimization that people don't even realize is happening. And some people think that that was just, that just happened by happenstance. But there's a lot of victimization, and I don't think it's ever going to change until people are made accountable, until whether it be corrupt civil servants, corrupt government officials, corrupt elected officials, until somebody get a hammer thrown at them, somebody's made to understand you can't talk to people this way, you can't act this way, you can't wield your power this way, it's going to continue. And sad to say, they like to say that, I like to incite violence, but somebody going to get killed if it doesn't stop. Eventually, somebody, because docile we are and quiet we are, but even a quiet dog when backed into a corner will come out biting. And that's what's happening to the people. And there's the sort of authoritative type regime from all levels of government, from the elected 13 comes straight down. And it's don't ask no questions. Don't question nothing.
It's interesting that you use that word regime. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it is. It doesn't change.
Tyranny.
It doesn't matter who's in. It doesn't matter which colors are being flown. There's always the inability to sort of question the political powers that be and ask questions. And it sounds funny, it sounds fishy, it's setting off your spider senses, but you can't do you can't put up your hand and say, excuse me, I don't understand what you're really doing. There's no accountability. They all campaign on it, but there's none. And the people don't want none either, truth be told.
Well, they say that a government is a reflection of its people. So, that's one of the reasons I'm not even losing any sleep over American politics. Whatever they decide, whatever they put out there tonight, that's what it is. That's what they want. In addition to that, I have too much going on in the BVI to try to tackle any other country's politics at this time. But yeah, a government is reflective of its country. So until we understand that, and I don't even know where to take it anymore or what to say. I had to tell a few people this past week that, unless you want to take to the street, unless you want some action, I'm just really not into the conversation anymore. I don't even like meetings. I don't like having conversations over and over and over, and we're saying the same thing over and over. If you're hurting, if you feel like this isn't right, let's do something about it.
Facts.
Let's do something about it. What would it take? Because I feel people's backs are up against the wall. You feel the pain, you see the tears,
Have you been my family support network recently? No. Every day there's a line.
I'm hearing about the lines.
Every day there's a line. Every day they run out. Every day they almost or just about run out of food. Every day this is a non-profit organization trying its best to fill a hole, and
Do you feel that those people there that are in that line, do you feel that they are voting citizens?
It's a funny scenario because tourism is a big employer, but tourism is also a big employer of the expat population. And in the BVI and Tortola, tourism mainly employs expats, but on our sister islands, Vajangada, Anegada, Jasmine, that's where you get a local population now in tourism, directly or indirectly. And I think that people don't realize how many people are actually out of work, local and expats alike. And I think there's this assumption that it's mostly the expats who are out of work, and it's mostly them.
I don't think that it's mostly the expats.
And there's for me, what I notice is that's part of the reason for the lack of empathy too, where people are not like, okay, so you ain't working, go home. That's the sort of. But okay, that's easy to say to this particular demographic. What you want to say to your sister island citizens? Where's home? They're home.
Yeah.
Where do you send them? Where do they go? How do they feed their children? What options do they have available for them? And that's a serious situation. And I think that people don't realize just how much of the voting populace is struggling right now. I mean, you have the whole of District 9 is Anegada and Vajangada. Look how many voting citizens in that area, and look how many of them work in tourism and how many of them are out of work right now. The breakdown of the stimulus packages shows that the bulk of the money went to Vajangada. So yeah, there's a good bit of those who can vote and who do have a say. A part of those lines, I just don't think people realize just how much of them are actually in those lines.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because normally when we're not impacted, like I said before, we seem to turn a blind eye. So I've heard about the situation at FSN, and I have been wondering how many people in that line are actually voting citizens, or they're being handed checks by whomever. And so they're okay. So they don't, the impact isn't really heading home as much.
I'm always, I'm always apprehensive when it comes to stimulus money and private health, public health to private citizens, simply because there's always an abuse of the system. We don't like to talk about it, but there's always an abuse of the system. And really, for the sake of the civil servants, I really hope that there were not very many civil servants who joined the lines and received the stimulus money, but I'm sure that they were.
They did. They did.
I'm sure that they were, because we're that kind of community where we feel if something is being given away, we want one, and then, send your son, send your daughter to get another one, and that kind of thing. And I don't think people understand. Like, for me right now, my mindset is I could still do, so I don't want to be given anything that I don't need. I will make do with what I have.
And let somebody else get.
Right. Let somebody else who needs it more than I do, receive that help. And I think that happens a lot, that the help doesn't necessarily go to the places really needs them. And then, of course, there's some issues that are affecting the stimulus money, where, like, with NHI and Social Security, if your contributions them ain't up to date,
Yeah.
you can't draw on that.
Yeah.
And then, but that's a problem that we
Yeah.
know has been existing for years.
For years. And
For
we've spoken
years.
about it on this show
For years.
quite a few times. Up to the first show, we spoke on it. For the second season, it is a problem. Even the minister for the subject has said that there were about 2,000 people who didn't receive. Now, those are 2,000 people who, you know,
Sydney,
why didn't they receive? Why can't they receive?
Has-
And what happens to them?
here's my problem with this NHI and Social Security and Inland Revenue problem, because these three entities,
Are connected.
two of them are statutory bodies, but still answer to government, and then the other one is direct government. And this is what I don't understand. Where is the law as it relates to the law that is being broken and the fraud that's being committed by these employers over and over again? Because if this was the United States, you're not paying your employees taxes, you're not paying their Social Security. That's a serious offense. That's a federal crime. You're talking about 85% of your jail. Almost every federal crime carries a life sentence. You
Yeah.
have to serve 85% of that time before you're even eligible to be out. So you've had entities, locals, expats, been complaining for years that their money isn't being taken. Here's their pay slip. The contributions aren't being paid in. These people go uncharged, nothing happens. And then the funniest thing is the ones who have to suffer are the people who actually having the money taken from them but never actually reaching. And I don't understand. Why isn't, okay, the government isn't doing anything. Social Security, you're a private entity. So is NHI. Step forward with your inspectors. Get your lawyers. Lock up the people. Go after those. That's a lot of money, especially
But we'll
in
be
a
going
time
after
like
our
now.
friends and family.
Well, lock them up still. Who cares?
But do you see where the problem is?
But they always tell you as a police, you have to be able to lock up friends and family. And I think that's the problem. And again, accountability. This is why I say that we don't want any. If you wanted it, you would say, sorry, Tom, Dick, Carrie, I love you, but you're doing the wrong things. I can't help you. I'll bring you food and clothes up at Barlow, but I can't help you.
Yeah, if I can give you a joke. When I started Cut Deep, it was probably before I started, but it has to do with my voice and my platform, and I'm very familiar with anybody that is related to me in the BVI. My mom knew the lines, she knew every connection, etc. So I've had people, older people, and in my age range, come up to me to say, basically, they're trying to give me a recap on who they are. And I understood where they were going with that, meaning, we're a family, right? And I'm like, yeah, my mom told me who you are. I know your name, who you're connected to. But they're giving me an indirect warning. We're a family, so
Don't call
if
my
anything
name.
come up with us, you have to. But that's not me. And I don't hate anyone, but if your business is going to interact with government and it's not above par, you might become a conversation. And there isn't anything that I can do about that, because then everything about my platform becomes disingenuous.
True.
Okay, so it's not a friend thing. We need to elevate ourselves. There's a foundation here that needs to be built so the BVI can climb up and move out of where we are. We're in a horrible, nasty place.
Yeah, we are.
Okay? And it's giving people sleepless nights. I spoke the other week on a third of our population that's stressed. Okay? A report was put out. A third of our population
Yep.
suffering from stress-related issues. Okay, so we have to move from where we are and try to, we have to do better. And on that, we're going to take a break and come right back.
Father Jesus, that line you long like church service.
Alright, do enjoy the rest of the day. Next customer line, please. Wait, hold on a second.
Yes, Sonny boy, come, yes,
Good
Sonny.
morning.
Good morning, Sonny boy. Over there. You must have cut fun to people.
It's okay. I'll take care of it.
What? No man forget you.
How may I assist you? You want top of power?
You want top of power?
Join the prepaid party with CCT and enjoy more affordable data plans, more top-up promotions, more savings with hero bundles, and more value for your money each and every Tuesday with Top Up Turn Up Tuesday. Visit a CCT store today or anywhere CCT Top Up is sold and top up your phone.
5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. You want top of power?
We're back. It's Cut Deep Season 2, Episode 4. Kishma, there are some things that I want to continue to trouble me at this juncture. It has come to my attention that a senior member of our elected administration was in his district last week walking around giving out 20K and 9K checks. If you are receiving a check from government for whatever reason, why on God's earth would an elected member need to hand that out? The open, blatant buying of our people, and might I add, with their own money, because the treasury money is ours. Imagine they're taking all money from our treasury and feeling like we are indebted to them for it. You ever hear more crosses? This is our money. I keep saying to people that administrations are elected or hired to manage government affairs. They should be accountable to the people. If they're not performing, they should know in no uncertain terms that they are screwing up. And if they are not adhering, a message should be sent that is so clear they can't miss it. There must be clarity in our revised constitution on removing an administration. The decision cannot sit with the House of Assembly. That in itself is a conflict. That decision should be one for the people. Think about it. How can the Constitution tell you that only you can fire yourself? You just wonder who are these people working for. And in terms of accountability, as we move on with that, those are some of the things that continue to bother me. The fact that we can walk around giving out checks and contracts and, all these little hidden things. I call it a continuous campaigning, with our money. How do you feel about removing an administration during its term?
Oh, boy. See,
there is something in the Constitution that says that we could look at ways to do that, but it's not clear.
The word Constitution, and it's a funny legal and technical term. I don't know exactly a lot about the Constitution past a certain point, but I do know that the Constitution itself seems to be in breach of the Constitution itself, because there are instances
when you read it, you're like,
yeah, because for instance, you're a civil servant like me, but you're indirect government with a statutory body.
I'm a public officer.
Great, so you're a public officer. They govern us by the general orders. The general orders say that we can't be seen at a political rally, and that's basically for our own protection. So basically, you're telling me that you're incapable of being impartial to me if I was to show you who my political affiliation is, which I have a right to do. I should be able to express myself in those regards. Then you have another problem. This is another constitutional problem. I run into this one personally. If you have an issue with your employer and you have to seek legal advice outside the direct service, and it reaches to the point of litigation and needing to file a suit against the government, you have to write a letter to the governor asking the governor if you could basically sue the governor. And so you're asking your boss, hey, I know you don't like me, but sign this paper so I could sue you because I know you don't like me. And there's something about
that's
that.
in the general orders?
Yeah.
But you see, here's where I go from. There are a lot of little you see the Constitution? I sit on that. Whatever that says, that's what Cindy's going to operate by. So
But
whatever you say inside of your work guidelines, if that's in contradiction to my rights inside of the Constitution is going to trump that.
That's why it doesn't make sense to me, because like you say, as I brought up that instance to show you, like you say, you got to ask your boss if you could fire the boss. Because it's the same thing. As an employee, I'm asking the boss if I could sue the company.
Because the understanding inside of the Constitution is that you, the opposition or members of the House would have to bring a no confidence vote inside of the House. However, I feel that I was speaking to a lawyer about it yesterday because we were discussing the Constitution. Let me just be clear on that before they go and say that I was trying to overthrow the government. You know, we petty around here.
Yep.
So that came up, and he was actually trying to explain to me what it meant. I feel, based on the Constitution, that 50% plus one can move anything.
Right.
In the BVI.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Okay? If you have 60% of the voting population bringing a no confidence to the governor to say, look,
we had enough.
We are not happy. We had enough. It's either you move something in the House or we move in everybody. Take your choice. Because we can head straight to the UK too. We have a lot of other, what's the word? Things that are options that we could use that people don't realize that we can use.
Yeah, there are options.
Okay? So yeah, those are things that I want to see in the Constitution because I feel like sitting 4 years under any administration that's not working is too long for the territory to survive. And a lot of things can go wrong that we can't reverse.
Facts.
You know? I'm going to take a quick switch up. I just want to talk about my fabulous hair real quick. I want to talk about my fabulous hair, my fabulous makeup, and how well McKelly's, you know, they are my sponsor for this show, and they do a great job for me. I want to talk about Blossoms Florist as well. And they, again, are the sponsors for keeping my set beautiful, and I really appreciate those two entities. Christmas is coming up. Blossoms is amazing. Get your fresh flowers and all your decor done there. And, you know, although we're under curfew, we don't know what's going to happen around Christmas time, but you never know. You can get all your pretty do's and hairs and nails and makeup over there at McKelly's. There are two subjects that I want to touch on quickly, Kishma, or time is winding down. I know 284 Media is not going to give me 5 minutes over time. Yes, I'm calling out 284 Media, my lovely team. If we go over time, I'm sure they'll be merciful. But there are two things that I want to touch on before we go. Our schools and our teachers. I try to be very mindful of what I say as it relates to our teachers in particular, because I do understand their position, and I have students. I wouldn't want that I have to run into any issues of victimization with my children as it relates to teachers, because I won't digest that well. But today, I'm going to talk about our teachers, and I'm going to talk about our schools, and I'm going to talk about our minister and our administration. I'll tell you the last time I talked about our minister or deputy premier, I got a letter at my office, but that's okay. The old people say every day bucket go to well. One day that string will burst. Anyways, our students are still at home. There are some of them that the private schools have gone out, okay?
Correct.
The private entities were able to get themselves together, added additional classes to spread their students out. And private schools really do not have money. They don't really have money. So they're always begging for money, okay? Our students, our public school students, are still at home. They've been given the okay to go back out to school. Some of them are back out to school. I think they're on 2 days. Some are still at home. The junior high school, they're not going back until January. Now, when you think on the reason, you know the reason why they're not in school, right?
Not the junior high.
So the reason the junior high school students, I'm going to talk to my people, the reason the junior high school students are not in school is because they have that big, beautiful building that everybody took pictures of, and the NDP didn't finish it, but we finished it. It upsets me. there are no desks and chairs
I
for our
heard about
students
I heard about
to
that.
sit at, okay? And I'm not saying this to create a problem or to tell a lie, because that is what I was told when I was called to say that my child isn't being present in class enough. I said, well, when is school going to open? Because I can't be two places. And this is something, a struggle that they don't understand from the parents' perspective. Our students do not have tables and chairs to sit in. But we're selling $5 million properties in the middle of COVID. We're signing off contracts, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them every week.
Infrastructure
And
development.
our students do not have chairs and desks to sit on. Isn't that a hell of a travesty? It breaks my heart and it breaks my soul.
It's especially tragic because both the Minister for Education as well as the Premier are educators. And to not
Everything around the VIP are educators.
Right.
I'm beginning to think they
Well,
shouldn't be
yes,
leading.
that's true because Ms. DeCastro is also educator. So
And
to
Vincent.
to not have education at the forefront, I don't understand. Especially
It's
now.
not on the forefront. You
It's-
can't tell me that a child doesn't have a chair and a desk to sit at and tell me education is at your forefront.
It's definitely not at the forefront. To have them investing money infrastructurally into areas that we don't necessarily need. I mean, we've been missing a market. It don't make no sense to do it now. They talked about the low-income housing project, but we have a problem now where we have a shortage of renters versus property that's available, and you're building more houses right now. So for me, it doesn't necessarily make sense where we are investing our money. But again, it's a smoke and mirrors game,
Kishma,
Sydney.
we don't give a rat's ass about our children.
No, we don't.
We don't
really
give
don't.
a rat's
We don't.
ass
We don't.
about our youth.
We don't.
Okay?
We don't.
You and I were just young. It's the same crap
Yeah, we don't. We
all
don't.
the time.
We don't.
How are you going to tell me that my child can't come to school because you don't have a desk and a chair for them to sit in?
That's what we choose to put our money
Okay?
in. Our
And you're out here
priorities.
talking about roads and signing this contract for a marketplace and all this goddamn nonsense.
It's true.
It really hurt my soul when he told me that. I said, I'm not the person that you want to tell that to. I'm really not that person. You know, so when they send me a message and they say, oh, your son was I don't answer. And it's not that I don't care, but hell, I'm out here working to death. I'm paying my taxes, and you're telling me my child doesn't have a desk, so he can't come to school.
And a building that's been open for a whole year.
Okay, bragging. Oh, look, we built it. It looked amazing. A shell. And that's what all little children, that's what they have to deal with. And then they complain about them roaming the streets or having nothing to do. If you had care about them, they'd have something to do.
It can be, like I said, I've made suggestions way before now about the opening of schools. I think that there are particular grades. If you can read, then I think you could deal with the online situation past, but only within certain age blocks.
Yes, children do not have that attention span. They don't.
Certain other age blocks need to be on the campus. Your senior school definitely needs to be on your campus. Your junior high definitely needs to be on your campus because of the age that they are and the dangers of their idle hands.
Mm-hmm.
At the primary school level, you need from stage 1 all the way to class 2 on the campus, and then 4 and 5 on the campus, the rest of them can stay home in between then. Because you definitely want the class 5 students to prep them for class 5 and primary 5, whatever version of primary 5 exam they're having now. Because they changed that.
Yeah.
But it's a serious issue.
It's a very serious issue, and that's the conversation that I keep hearing around why our children can't get into school. There's a money issue, whether on the government side or on the parent side. I will never accept that there's a money issue on the government side based on all that I'm seeing floating around. In terms of the parents, again, we go back to where people are struggling because they're out of work. The government in all their might and splendor in that bottomless pit that they feel they don't have, okay, could have set up accounts for students to be able to, parents to be able to go get what students need for school. These are our children. These are our next generation. You have no care in the world for them. And when the minister is going to get up and he's going to be like, oh, don't listen to the noise. Oh, parents are telling. So 2 parents told you they like it online better. Come on, where are the statistics? We never have statistics to go off of.
No, we
with
never.
these
We just go based on what it is they're saying.
Where are the statistics to say that children aren't learning?
Personally,
or are learning under this?
I wouldn't say that parents don't have money or to a certain extent because
No, they don't. They don't. You have parents complaining that they can't afford to get their school clothes and so forth.
I understand that, but you have instances where the school is in the hole to parents. I bought all of my son's stuff and paid all his school fees before Armor. That was a wash, as they told me, 2018. 2018, I spent more money on uniforms and things. And I never received that uniform either, so I guess that one was a wash as well.
You gotta be kidding
2019.
Me. That don't sound like you.
And I still haven't seen the money that I paid for school uniform and stuff. So, and I'm just one of many parents who, every time we hear orientation, it's a set of us, keep asking, but what keep happening to this money we spending in these uniforms that we're not getting? So I wouldn't say, it's funny because obviously, if you're a real parent, you do what you need to do for your child.
But if you can't, you can't.
If you can't, you can. But then you don't exactly have the bodies helping you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then also that takes me on to our teachers who, for the love of God, they think that this is about them. Okay? When I hear some of our teachers open their mouths, I sit back, I smile, because that's the best thing for me to do. Okay? But they somehow feel that this is about them and they're not ready to go back into school and the climate isn't right and they don't want to get sick and this and that. And you're like,
well, there are 2 professions.
Am I missing something here?
There are 2 professions in the world that you absolutely can never do those jobs effectively if you don't do it for the love. Being a nurse, and the next one is being a teacher. You have to love
worried about
both of those jobs more. You have to love the patients more. You have to love the students more than you love the job. Else you cannot do it and you won't do it effectively.
And don't get me wrong, there are some teachers, I have experienced them that are just, they love your children like they're theirs.
Right.
But I'm really, there's something about a chunk of our teachers that's not sitting well with me. And the fact that they, as an entire block in itself, wouldn't stand up against what is going on against our students, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah,
and again, it goes back to the victimization because they talk about, oh, well, we don't know. We might be out of a job if we say something. No,
but they have a union. They're the one entity. They have a union.
Well, that union is afraid as well. So I don't know what to say.
There's a teachers' union, and they have more power than our civil service union, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they don't seem to, that doesn't seem to have any power or impact because the type of feedback that I'm receiving from the teachers, it seems like they are afraid of.
Listen, you look at the teaching population, who is it made up of? That's your problem right there.
Okay, well, if they decide to send home some, they still got to bring some.
That's your problem
They can still stand up as a unit.
I agree. They should have definitely stand up for stage 1, class 1. I mean, stage 2 for sure, because I could imagine as a class 1, a stage 1 teacher, how do you try to teach a 5-year-old who doesn't know how to read, who can't farm letters, how to do this over the internet through a video? How exactly do you
But you know that we're in... These children are not going to be... I see my children do it all the time. If I'm at home, I am yelling all day long. Okay, as soon as you step out the room, you have to watch them 24/7.
Correct.
The teacher is going, and they're on one of their games. Because they don't have to have on their camera.
Exactly. Well, our infrastructure don't allow them to do it, The minute they turn on the cameras to stream, the whole thing starts to crash.
Well, that's true, too, but don't make me laugh because I'm really upset about our schools and our students and just the way our young people continue to be handled and used and abused and misused in this territory. And that takes me on to our last thing that I really want to touch on to it for media. Just love me up this evening. I really want to touch on the elected youth parliament that has, I love them, they said they've got me, elected youth parliament that was just elected. Kishma, quickly, how you feel about that? And then I'll tell you how I feel about that.
As I spoke to you briefly about it, it's the same script, different cast. Or rather, different cast, same script. You have the same now the youth parliament is a reflection of some of the same people who form the statutory bodies and the different body groups throughout government and different entities. And so it's like nothing changes because you keep pulling from the same set of people over and over again. You know, you don't create the diversity that is needed because you're not really pulling from all walks of life like you should when you form these groups.
Correct. Here is my thing, and the youth parliament, it's not a new thing by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not blaming any administration for it, but I'm blaming the institution that is the BVI. This institution that we keep talking about that needs to be dragged down by its throat. Okay? Why on God's earth do we need to handpick people for the youth parliament? That is my issue with this. Not only did we handpick, but they were handpicked by the district reps. Why? Wouldn't this have been the perfect exercise to teach our youth, right, their civic duty?
Yeah.
Wouldn't this been the perfect opportunity to bring in our youth in how government works, the Constitution? Why couldn't
the whole political game could have been done that way? They could have
correct.
run. They could have run. They could have write essays to say why they need to be
I feel that this youth parliament should have been elected by the youth.
Yeah, they could have.
Why couldn't that happen?
You could have definitely shown them exactly how pretty much do the same thing, but on a smaller level.
Yeah, it teaches.
Right.
You know, people
And so
continue
you could
to say,
educate them about the electoral process.
and actually fighting for something instead of being giving things, right? There's something that, you know, people continue to say about Virgin Islanders that we couldn't make it anywhere else because we're too pampered. And it's the truth, okay? Out in the real world, you have to struggle and fight for your job, for a promotion, for a higher salary. Here, everything is given. This was the perfect opportunity to embrace our youth, to teach them our systems, to show them that we do value them. Instead, we handpick people that we like. We handpick people that we feel should make it. We handpick youth that we think should shine.
Yep. We had
I see a lot of youth out there.
Too.
Exactly. We continue.
It's the same repetitive thing from when we're going to school. It hasn't changed.
Correct.
The haves and the haves from time they haven't changed. I mean,
what an opportunity to miss.
Yep.
But our youth are very different to us when we were growing up. They're very in tuned. They're paying very close attention. And they are a machine to watch. And for any elected representative or any government administration that thinks that all young people are out here messing around and playing with them, they're paying very keen attention. And I feel like this was an opportunity lost to embrace them and make them a part of our system and how the system actually works and function. Yeah. But again, here we are choosing this one, and this one has to make it. I want that one to make it. I want this one to be that, so let me put him here. It's all the people that they feel supported them on their youth committees and this committee.
Correct.
Just be done with it. Be done with it. Give this country an opportunity to be something, to be its best. Stop handpicking. Stop the favoritism and choosing, and just stop. That's like all I can say tonight. My energies are weaning. At some point, I'm probably gonna kill this show because I'm gonna get tired speaking. But
don't kill the show, Cindy. We need voices. Don't kill the show. Don't kill the show. We need voices.
But give us a chance. Give the BVI a chance to truly be something, to be what it could actually be. Let us stop just choosing and deciding amongst a small group as to who would make it. We have a lot of talent out there. We have a lot of beautiful young people that have a lot of ideas, and they can do a lot for us.
You know. It
was very sad too. That was very sad for me.
There's a part of the conversation that doesn't get talked about, which is there's a creation of a class of entitlement based on you don't want your child to see the other side of failure. And failure, pressure make diamonds. And you have
I agree
pressure
with you.
make diamonds. And when we pamper these children and we don't let them sometimes feel the repercussion of coming last, coming second, being bested, we don't teach them that you have to walk. And it's not something that's just unique to the BVI because it's all over. Mediocrity is being celebrated all over.
Yeah.
They're coming
Yeah.
up with these mini celebrations to make everybody feel like a star. Brother, you shoot the shot.
Yeah.
You in the star.
Exactly.
You know,
I
didn't
totally agree with you.
You didn't answer the question. You're not the star.
Yeah.
And
I
I
agree with
think
you.
that is a big proponent of why we have that that sense of entitlement because you know you're always being given the best, even though you don't deserve it. You didn't work for it.
work for it.
But you're giving it just the same.
Yeah.
So you don't understand the uniqueness between the child who actually put in the work to be the valedictorian and you who still get gold tassels because we all should have honor cards. We shouldn't separate everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it makes a difference.
Yeah, I agree. Kishma, thank you for being here with me. I appreciate voices like yours
Thank you.
in the community. I feel like that's the only way for us to chip away at what's going on. It can be one voice, it can be two voices. But I do see a slight change. There's a change in the wave. People are talking more. They're getting more involved. They're asking more questions.
They're thinking for sure.
And that is what I want. That is what I want for my platform, for your platform, for any other voice, Doc Walters, all of these people that continue to speak in their own platforms to try to bring about a change in this institution that I feel is just stifling the growth of the BVI. Thank you for being here. I'm sure I'm going to have you back on again. Thank
Anytime,
you,
Cindy.
my team at 284 Media. You've been so kind to me tonight. Again, thank you to McKelly's Beautiful Salon for making me beautiful. And thank you to Blossoms Florist for my beautiful flowers and for keeping my set beautiful. Have a good evening, and we're going to see you again next week with another awesome show. Good night.